Are the Cincinnati Bengals the most desperate team to keep any star player in town? Or are Houday Bengals ahead of the curve in the NFL to never pay defensive players ever again? I was going to start calling them the CINCY Crickets until out of nowhere, the Cincinnati Bengals announced that they were working on deals with both Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Sure enough, this morning it became official. Cincy is going to be spending $70 million per year on just these two wide receivers. And how will this work out? Well, first of all, what just happened? This all started when the Bengals already were overdrafting at the wide receiver position in the first place. They already had a combo of Joe Burrow and T. Higgins growing their rookie year together. But because of an injury, we're in position at 5th overall to draft the left tackle of this franchise's future. So that way Joe Burrow would have time to throw the ball down the field to T. Higgins. But whether Burrow called for this or not, I guarantee you he did. The Bengals ended up, remember, no one agreed with them when they did it, going wide receiver again. And they took Ja'Marr Chase with the 5th overall pick over Penei Sewell, who will go to the Lions. And since then, the Bengals have had all kinds of problems on their offensive line. Since then, they've had to franchise tag T. Higgins multiple times because they know a Ja'Marr Chase payday is incoming. And this led to them losing multiple other defensive players to cap casualties over the last couple of years, which we're going to talk about more in this video. But the big one being Trey Hendrickson had to seek a trade because the Bengals couldn't afford to keep him. All because Ja'Marr Chase, the guy that they maybe shouldn't have drafted in the first place, is going to want so much money. He's going to want to break all of Justin Jefferson's payday records. But the Bengals started to catch a few breaks across the league. They started to catch a few breaks across the wide receiver market. The big ones being Tyreek Hill and Davante Adams. Both of these guys, when they were traded to the Dolphins and traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, were traded for draft capital. And both of these trades fell flat on their faces, which leads us to today. And this offseason, where we saw DK Metcalf get traded to the Steelers for a 3rd round pick, where we saw the Rams unable to even find a trade partner for Cooper Kupp. Nobody even interested in sending a 7th round pick for Kupp. Same thing with Davante Adams and the Jets. Not even sending a 7th round pick for Davante Adams, knowing that he's going to get cut. Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, more wide receivers are still waiting to get signed to this day. And he's another one of those guys that was just dealt a few years ago for a mega package. I say all this because it just tanked T. Higgins' trade value. If the Bengals could get 2 first-round picks for T. Higgins or a 1st and a 2nd-round pick for T. Higgins, I don't know that they would even be offering him this deal. But if you can only get 1 2nd-round pick for T. Higgins, a 3rd-round pick for T. Higgins possibly, when you look at what DK Metcalf went for, all of a sudden, it may not be worth it to the Bengals to trade him so much. So, Bengals fans, I should say, and the Bengals ownership group lucked out on that big time. Because if those trades work out, the Dolphins were in contention the last couple of years. If the Raiders still had Davante Adams and were one of the top teams in the AFC, if Stephon Diggs won a Super Bowl with the Bills, T. Higgins will be worth 2 first-round picks right now. And something else that's forced the Cincinnati Bengals to completely change their ways with this, honestly, because they've been a notoriously cheap franchise, is Joe Burrow. When Burrow calls the shots and says, sign Ja'Marr Chase, sign Mike Gesicki, sign T. Higgins, Cincinnati went and signed them. And that pressure, that fear that Cincinnati has of Joe Burrow leaving this team for the Minnesota Vikings, or what if all these guys decided to come together and team up on the New Orleans Saints back in Louisiana? It would absolutely sink the entire Bengals franchise. And Ja'Marr Chase would go with them too. And I think that pressure came down on the Bengals this offseason. I think Ja'Marr Chase was straight up with them. Especially with T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase having the same agent. You sign both of us or you're signing neither of us. And what that would mean is that Joe Burrow is going to request a trade as well. But instead, they keep them all. T. Higgins is getting $116 million over 4 years on his deal, the highest paid wide receiver 2 of all time. But I just want to put a note on that. People are all saying that the highest paid wide receiver 2 in NFL history. Ja'Marr Chase may have taken $3 to $5 million off per year, but T. Higgins has risked everything. And any chance that he had of being a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, he's flushing it down the drain, taking a $10 million pay cut to stay in Cincinnati. So he's not the highest paid wide receiver 2 of all time, although he is. He has now taken the biggest pay cut in wide receiver history. And then Ja'Marr Chase, 4 years, $160 million. He's making $40 million per year. Him and Burrow are going to combine for $100 million per year. And you'd think that would mean that Trey Hendrickson's gone for good? No! And this may have changed my whole opinion on this double wide receiver signing move. Because the same thing that happened to T. Higgins, The same thing that happened to Cooper Kupp, same thing that happened to DK Metcalf, same thing that happened to Devontae Adams. It's happening to Trey Hendrickson. Because Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks last year. He was the only bright spot on the Cincinnati defense. A one-man wrecking ball, but he's 31. This draft class is stacked at that position. Honestly, every draft class is stacked at that position. Teams want to be able to afford to pay multiple guys, have a rotation of up to 4 quality edge rushers. And then me personally, I don't think Trey Hendrickson has the star power that like a Max Crosby or a Micah Parsons has. Or let's say maybe a Myles Garrett who was ripped off the trade market by the Browns. Hendrickson might not go for a first-round pick. This has pushed the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson down a different path. They went from we're probably going to be getting a trade done to it might be more valuable for both Hendrickson and the Bengals to work out a deal. And Hendrickson do a 2-year, do something short to where he can still hit the market at some point and contribute to the Bengals in 2025 and 2026. That's basically what's happened so far. Now, what do I think about this move? How do I think this is going to age? I'm going to let you know. But first, one quick reminder. If you've never met me before, hi, I'm NFLMike. I'm an NFL content creator that creates NFL content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and twice on Sundays. I don't get any sleep because I'm just constantly watching for new news to break. So that way I can bring it to the YouTube, Instagram, TikTok channels. Please subscribe, turn on all notifications so you can be here every time I post. If you're an NFL fan, I know you will love the channel. And then while you're there, make sure you smash that like button. Hit that thumbs up to support all of my content for completely free and keep this show running. All right, this whole thing has me asking the question, are NFL franchises giving up on paying defenses entirely? Because when you look at the results of these teams that are basically writing blank checks to wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, versus the teams that sign corners, safeties, edge rushers to mega deals, it's starting to look like we're never going to see defensive players get paid again. I mean, look at the list here. The Cincinnati Bengals now are spending the most of their cap, percentage-wise, on the offense out of everyone in the league. But when you look at this, recent Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles are in the top 3. Kansas City Chiefs, who have won back-to-back 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, 5th. Another team that won the Super Bowl recently, Los Angeles Rams, they're in 11th. Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 12th. Teams that have been competing for the AFC, the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs, they're all up there. Teams competing for the NFC Championship, the Detroit Lions, they're in the top 7. Really, the only outlier on this list that really makes you go, huh, this doesn't make sense, is the Baltimore Ravens, way down at 29, who are spending about 50% of their cap on defense still and succeeding. Washington Commanders, I kind of give them an out because they got a rookie quarterback at 23rd. You include that, they're going up into the top 10. Same thing with San Francisco 49ers when they sign Brock Purdy. Or the Minnesota Vikings when they sign a quarterback eventually. This is clearly a league-wide movement. In fact, when the Pittsburgh Steelers sign a quarterback, they will be the last team to go over 49% spent on the offense to 51% spent on the offense. Officially making all 32 teams more invested in their offensive players and their defensive players. The Philadelphia Eagles are the big one to look at. They are paying the quarterback max dollar. They're paying 2 wide receivers just like the Bengals are. They're also paying Saquon Barkley. Lane Johnson took a pay cut today to stay on the team and continue to make max dollar. They're paying every other position on the offensive line all the way across from guard to the other tackle. But then when you go to the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Carter on a rookie contract. Young guys like Cooper DeJean, rookie contract. Quinyon Mitchell, rookie contract. This may be able to work out for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I have not been a believer in signing both wide receivers until literally like this week. Because the real key to the defense isn't going to necessarily be just Trey Hendrickson. Although getting this deal done will make me believe in the Bengals a lot more next season. They're going to have to spend basically the rest of their cap space on Hendrickson. So the only way that this defense, which was maybe the worst in the league, definitely bottom 5, can improve, especially in the secondary where they need to improve, is through the draft. But fortunately for the Bengals, that's a position that you actually can build through the draft. I just cited the Philadelphia Eagles. Like we've seen the Kansas City Chiefs, they traded L'Jarius Sneed because of how many guys they just continue to stack in their secondary in the end of the first round, in the beginning of the second round in every year's draft. The Bengals are selecting at 17th overall this year. The Chargers got Derwin James at 17th overall. I was talking about how this puts all the pressure on Burrow, all the pressure on Chase, all the pressure on Higgins to carry the Bengals. All of the pressure is actually shifted off of those guys who can now relax and have fun. And on to the defensive back, scouts, coaches, and staff, because they have to land every single secondary pick. I think it's also going to be very important that Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase especially are flexible with restructuring their contracts every year maybe. We're seeing Patrick Mahomes do it. We're seeing Josh Allen do it. Basically just never-ending contracts that can just keep going forever when you keep extending them and lowering the cap hit. Overall, I see everyone's argument. Everyone is saying you can only throw the ball to one player on each play. When you're paying a guy $40 million and Ja'Marr Chase, it should go to him majority of the time. At the same time, you see this shift towards building video game-like offenses. And since I've booed them for letting other players like Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Chidobe Awuzie, the guys that went on the Super Bowl run in this secondary, walk in the pass for cap reasons, I can't sit here and say now it doesn't all make sense now that they've done that. They couldn't afford any of those guys if they were planning on keeping T. Higgins. So if I booed letting every single one of those guys walk, I have to cheer somehow, keeping this together in a situation that seemed impossible. And cheer the complete mindset shift in Cincinnati from being ultra cheap to literally paying the most to wide receivers and the most to quarterbacks in the entire league. One person needed to bring change to that franchise. Let Joe Burrow be their LeBron James. Because if they didn't do this, LeBron James might have left for Miami. Gonna go from who dey to who the fuck are they? Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel for 24/7 coverage of the NFL, and comment how you think this is going to go for Cincinnati. Will the Cincy defense literally give up 40 points per game? I guess sooner rather than later, the ball definitely won't lie.
Bill Flames, I went Mike on the mic. With something brand new, one time for your mind. He gave you fair warning. Now it's time to smack him in the mouth with that raw sports talk from the town. Sweet chin music to your favorite sports.